Hi, good afternoon. Welcome back, Knicks fans. Today we're going to evaluate the New York Knicks front office. We're evaluating the moves they made last season, during the offseason last year, and we're basically grading the decisions that they made. So how we're going to do is like they made a decision about players on his team. Each individual player they made a decision about, we're going to assign a grade next to it, and then I'm taking the average and then also a median of basically all the grades, and that's what we're going to use to figure out what grade the front office gets for all the decisions that they made during last off season. Before we get into it, if you guys can, please like, subscribe. Also, feel free to comment below, and just please, just like first. Hit a like button and also subscribe. I'm going to be doing more videos this summer. I'm going to be doing about one video every week. And so if you want to get the notification on when my videos are coming out, please subscribe, and so you'll also get that notification. All right, without further ado, we're going to get right into it. And so like I said before, we're evaluating the New York Knicks front office and the decisions that they made during the last off season. Like I said before, the way we're going to do it is each individual player on this team, they made a decision. At least the ones we knew they made a decision about, we're going to assign a grade next to each of those decisions. We're going to take an average of all the grades, and we're also going I took an average of it and also took the median of all the grades. Because they were very close together, I was able to use that to basically come up with one grade, right? And so we're going to start up top. We have the list of players that they made a decision about during last offseason, and we're going to start with Mitchell Robinson. And Mitchell Robinson, although he's not a free agent yet, but he is going to be a free agent this offseason. And the decision that the front office made about Mitchell Robinson, they clearly made a decision not to lock him up early. And so, and we're not sure if that decision was forced onto them by Mitchell Robinson and his representation, or so basically Mitchell Robinson was essentially trying to bet on himself, or if it was the front office saying, okay, we need to see more, so we're not going to lock you up as a result of that. Honestly, in my opinion, we've all known because we've watched a lot of basketball, a lot of Knicks basketball, we've seen Mitchell Robinson since he was a rookie. I mean, we all know this kid had a natural gift, especially on the defensive end. I always felt he had a really good touch on the offensive end. He puts a lot of pressure on the rim as well. This year, he didn't have, in my opinion, I didn't feel like Mitchell Robinson had like a great year, as good as the year as he could have had. And we know the reason why that was because of the all the weight that he gained because of the injury, last year's injury. So he didn't really have the opportunity to really work out the way he wanted to in the off season. And so he came in extremely overweight this year. He thought he was going to be a huge benefit, but he was way too heavy, and he was not in the proper conditioning to start the season. I kind of felt that, but at the end of the season, I still felt that he had a little too much weight on him. However, they seem to be comfortable with his current weight, because I think as of around February, actually maybe late January, you noticed that he stopped dropping weight, and he played at the same weight, I think, basically from beginning of February all the way to the end of the season. And so that's pretty much what happened with Mitchell Robinson. Now, the fact that the front office didn't lock him up early, or if it was their decision not to do it, what I can guess is the fact that from what I see about Mitchell Robinson, it seems like he doesn't always listen, especially during the off season. So I'm not sure. I'm not there. I'm not in the team. So all I'm doing is speculating here. But from the little bit I do hear about him, it seems like he doesn't always listen, and he doesn't always work on the things he's supposed to work on with the coaches in the off season. During the season, that's one different thing. But when he's gone and it's off season, sometimes I get the feeling he just does his own thing, and he does what he wants to do. And so I think that's probably one of the concerns with him. Maybe they might be concerned about his ability to listen and do what he needs to do, especially in the off season, right? And so to be a better player. I'm speculating on that, but from the little bit of the interviews, the little that I hear, not just what Mitch says, but some of the things you hear that comes out. You haven't really heard any negative things about Mitchell Robinson really even this year, or even during the last offseason. But I can just kind of tell Like for example, when he was talking about how, oh, they've been trying to get him to lift for a very long time, but he never wanted to lift. All he wanted to do was hoop in the off season. Basically, he doesn't. He does. So that shows he doesn't listen to the trainers during the off season, and he just kind of does what he wants to do. The other thing too is like I felt like is he came really overweight, right? This because he was injured, wasn't able to do much. He's only 22 years old at the time, I guess, about 20, 21, 22 years old. So it's hard to say, oh, like a 22-year-old need to have the discipline of an Olympian, basically, right? But he is a professional athlete, and so he was injured. And so I'm sure the team was very specific about the kind of foods he could eat. And I don't think I'm pretty sure he didn't basically listen to the team nutritionist about like what he should have eaten over the summer, and so honestly, I kind of think a lot of people just want to blame the injury. I think yes, he was injured, and so it made it harder for him to keep his weight down because he couldn't hoop and he couldn't like exercise, run, and do the things he had to do. However, he could have kept the weight off by eating properly. With the combination of that and the weightlifting that he did, I think it would have been easier for him to get into shape once the season started. So I kind of put that more on Mitchell Robinson and his discipline, and less on the on his injury. And so I think that's what I'm thinking. Possibly that could be the reason why the team didn't lock him up early. I think they're really just concerned about his commitment to improving, especially in the offseason, and also his commitment to being the best that he can be. Because, like I said, he's a awesome talent, and I think he could probably be, honestly, in my opinion, from the statistics that I have, he actually had the best season on the team. It sounds crazy, it doesn't look it, but all the stats that I look at shows he had the highest impact on the team. He had the highest PER, according to basketballreference.com. Even if you look here, he has the highest net rating on the team, and he had the highest PIE on the team. I calculated the PIE for the whole team for the whole season. I'm sorry, no, he did not have the highest PIE on the season. I'm sorry, that's wrong. He had one of the higher PIEs on the season, but when you adjust it for his matchups and his defense, he actually ends up having the highest PIE with it. That's what I call PIE with defensive factor. He had the highest on the team. And so the PIE with the defensive factor to me shows the player that has the highest impact on the team. And then also it kind of matches up with the PER. The PER is the player with the most production per minute on the team. And so Mitchell Robinson was that person. So the front office, I didn't give them a letter grade on it yet. It's I'm leaving that as incomplete because we want to see if they're able to retain Mitchell Robinson over the summer. If they're not able to retain Mitchell Robinson, I don't care if it's a sign and trade. If it's a sign and trade for someone who's actually a better talent than Mitchell Robinson that helps improve this team dramatically, then they're going to get a good letter grade. But if they just get back somebody who's of a lesser talent who has a lower impact on the team, I'm actually going to give the front office an F on that decision. The next person is going to be Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose, I thought it was a good signing to bring him back. However, Derrick Rose was injured throughout this whole season, and it was unfortunate. He only played about 25 games, and so the team struggled really down the stretch because we didn't have Derrick Rose. But the problem with Derrick Rose, too, was because of the coach that we have, he basically ran Derrick Rose into the ground until he was injured. We knew right up front when he started playing Derrick Rose about 37, 38 minutes a game for like a week straight. Like we were like, okay, we wonder how long this is going to last. And of course, it didn't last long. It was only like second week of the coach doing that. Derrick Rose was basically injured and was done pretty much for the season. And so I thought it was a good job by the front office to bring him back. And but because he was injured, it seemed like it wasn't the greatest decision. But if it wasn't for the injury, if Derrick Rose would have played about 60 games this season, I definitely would have given the front office at least a B for this signing, possibly even an A. Regardless of even if this team struggled, I still would have given them a good grade. Well, actually, a lot of it is also dependent on Derrick Rose's performance. So a lot of this grade is also depends on that individual player's performance. But I'm assuming and I'm betting everything that I can that Derrick Rose would have actually, had a pretty good performance here. His net rating was 0. So he wasn't a drag, but he wasn't a net benefit to the team, according to the net rating of basketballreference.com. So I gave them a C for that. Next person is Julius Randle. I gave the front office a D for Julius Randle. So now, obviously, it's clear to everyone that we probably should have traded Julius Randle when he was playing really well, when his stock was high, and he came in, had a terrible season. He came in out of shape, had a bad season, had a really bad attitude, was fighting with everyone on the team, constantly slapping his teammates or pushing his teammates, or even like slapping laptops off, team staff's hands. It was a lot of craziness with Julius Randle. And look, a lot of it is because of New York City. It's a very tough place to play. And so once that pressure got on him, he's just a very passionate, emotional guy, and he just wasn't steady enough mentally and emotionally. And because he wasn't steady enough emotionally, he wasn't able to basically keep his head, and he essentially lost it. And so, but I think a lot of it started with the fact that he came in out of shape. I was wondering why he was struggling early in the season, and then then when the news came that he came back out of shape, and obviously he wasn't putting up the shots that he was, before or after practice, whatever it might be, or even in the off season. Of course, the performance we got from Julius Randle was what we got. As you see here, his defensive rating was 109 this season. That defensive rating, so that's a rating basically for the team while he was on the floor. And at least that's what I'm pretty much sure that's how Basketball Reference is calculating. That's what it's supposed to be. Offensive rating was only 102. So that's the team's offensive rating while he was on the floor. I kind of feel like these ratings between Basketball Reference and NBA.com, it's weird. I think it's different. So I'm going to do a video where I compare both of these ratings to see what's going on. Maybe when I do that video, if anyone knows the reason why these ratings could be different between both of these sites, they can basically reach out to me, comment below, whatever. But let's continue. Julius Randle, his net rating was -7, and we know what happened this year. So it was clear he probably should have been traded last year. And look, sometimes you can say, Julius Randle had a great year last year. How would you have known he was going to fall off the cliff the way he did? Honestly, we all should have known because, it was a contract year for him, right? So now it made a lot of sense. Now you come in and he got the contract, and the fact that we found out that he came in out of shape. Once we found out he came in out of shape, it became tremendously and obviously clear to me that it was contract year, and so he basically played the game of his life basically last year, and so that's why he played as well as he did. And he came in out of shape this year, and so that's pretty much that's what we got. And so the front office should have known this. Obviously, I bought into it too. I thought they should have kept him given the performance from last year. However, it's the front office job to basically keep all this stuff in mind and to make sure you make the proper decision based on all the factors coming in. So you have to factor in his performance from last year, but you also have to factor in that is a contract year. And of course, we know what happens with athletes in contract years. They always do their best work in those years. And so I give the front office a D for that, and because his value is much lower than it is now, and so it's going to be harder to trade Julius. Next person is Kemba Walker. I give the front office a D for Kemba Walker. I don't give him totally an F because I felt like Kemba Walker would have been able to contribute to the team. However, because of the coach that we had, the coach just wasn't he just wasn't creative enough on the offensive end to use Kemba Walker. I would have thought at least some of his offense would have offset basically the poor defensive play, but that didn't happen. We didn't use Kemba Walker at all, although it was clear we probably should have used him to run the offense. It seems like we just didn't do that. We didn't do that enough anyway. We still ran the offense mostly through Julius Randle, especially early in the season. It was basically Julius Randle and Evan Fournier. There was a lot of action between both of them, and they would have Kemba Walker off at the top of the key or from the corner out somewhere else. And so I give them a D for that, and and it is what it is. It was just a bad signing. Alec Burks, I gave the front office a C for it. Although according to Basketball Reference, his net rating was a +7, which is actually really good for the team. Um, it just the issue with that is because you know the kind of coach that you have, and this also goes for Kemba Walker. You know the kind of coach that you have. You know the young guys that you have, and so you know the coach is basically going to depend heavily um, on basically veteran players. Kemba Walker was an okay defender, was pretty solid defender this year. Like, especially team defense was pretty good. The only problem with with Alec Burks. I'm sorry, Alec Burks was a solid team defensive player this year, not Kemba Walker. He was a solid defensive player, a team defensive player. But if he gets isolated one on one, a lot of times if you attack him one on one, he can't really keep anyone out of the paint. But his help defense and team defense was actually pretty solid. Always made good rotations. It's just I felt that having Alec Burks on his team, number one, the offense just, I don't feel the offense was really there. He really struggled shooting this year. And then also, like I said, on the defensive end, although his defensive rating was 110, if you look at a lot of the games, he was a liability a lot of times. It was very difficult for him to keep anyone out of the paint. And so, although he had a net rating of +7, I still give the front office a C because having Kemba on his team, actually, given the coach he had, did help hold the team back. And although it was on a coach to make the right decisions, the coach basically did not make the right decision. But the front office should have known the coach would have misused would have misused Alec Burks the same way he misused Kemba Walker. Alec Burks is the next person. I give this an incomplete. They traded for Cam Reddish is the next player. I give them an incomplete for Cam Reddish because they traded for him in the middle of the season around right before the trade deadline, but they didn't play him really this year. And Cam Reddish also got hurt, but basically about a month in after we traded for him, and so we don't know what we have with Cam Reddish. Very enticing player. I think he's extremely talented, very high upside. Given the way the coach approaches the offseason with the young players, I like the way he approaches the offseason with the young players. So I'm very interested to see what Cam Reddish looks like when he comes back next year. I'm really hoping he's going to be healthy enough to work out in the offseason with the coach. I'm really, given the way the coach works with the young players, that's actually probably the only thing I like about this coach is the way he works with kind of the plan and the approach he takes with the young players. I'm not there enough to see exactly how they do it, how they approach it, but from the little bit I do here, I do like it. I like that he always have a plan for the young players, and I do like that he likes to work with the young players in the off season. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, and it'll be great to even hear especially from the players what they actually worked on in the off season with the coach. So at least that way we can compare what they worked on with what our expectations are, what should have they worked on, or given what they're working on, is the coach limiting what this young player can actually do? That could kind of reveal a little more of what the coach thinks about this player and what their how he might perform next season in the long run with the team. So right now it's an incomplete because we don't know if they're going to be able to play him more, and so we'll be able to have a grade for this Cam Reddish trade next year. The next player is Evan Fournier. Although Evan Fournier picked up towards the end of the year and actually had some really good shooting games, actually won even some games for us, to tell you the truth. However, overall, you gotta give him an F. And the reason why that is, it's if you look at I feel like if you look at Evan Fournier in totality, his performance, first of all, look at the net rating, which was a -4, so he was a drag on the team. And it was his defense wasn't great while he was on the floor. He was actually, you can clearly tell he was a drag on a team defensively when he was on the floor. It was very difficult. He was terrible on rotations. He's terrible on one-on-one defense. sometimes there was like some games where he basically would get aggressive and play the passing lanes very aggressive. Or when he double teams, he's actually pretty good at double teaming and going for steals. And so he was good at that. But overall, he was just really bad defensively. And then the offense was very inconsistent. There was, like I said, there was a couple of games where he actually won some games for the Knicks. But honestly, overall, he was a drag on the team. He was a -4. And then on top of that, he basically was in the way of younger players that probably could have gotten more minutes. And so for that, I give the front office an F for this signing. I know, it's crazy. Some people might think, like, how do you give Kemba Walker a D and Evan Fournier F? Um, you know, honestly, Kemba Walker was just, I felt like the offense did flow a little better when he ran the offense sometimes. And he actually, when he was healthy, the offense, like, he actually really, I felt like he had a bigger impact when he was healthy. And the offense flowed a lot better when he was healthy. He was pretty bad on the defensive end as well. Don't get me wrong. He was bad on the defensive end. He was a liability on the defensive end. But I just kind of felt like, in my opinion, I felt like Kemba Walker was just, if it wasn't for the injury and the way the coach played him, I think he would have had a better impact on the team than Evan Fournier did. Evan Fournier just got, he was healthy, and the coach basically knew how to play Evan Fournier. And even with the coach using Evan Fournier, pretty well, basically half of the season, he was still a drag. Kemba Walker, the coach didn't use Kemba Walker really much at all properly. And even when Kemba Walker was healthy, he looked good. And then the other thing, too, you got to remember with Kemba Walker, the coach, like, Kemba Walker can't play really more than 25 minutes a game. He really, in my opinion, he really should be playing, honestly, Kemba Walker probably should be playing about 20 minutes a game religiously, maybe 18 to 20 minutes religiously on his team. And they should find the rest of the minutes, then have Derrick Rose play 25 minutes. And I don't care, you can throw the rest of the 3 minutes to 3 minutes to McBride. But it was clear, basically the players that this coach had, his two best guards was clearly not able to play more than 25 minutes a game. Kemba Walker should not have really played more than 20 minutes a game. But that's the reason why I felt like he would have been a better impact player than Evan Fournier would have been. That's why I give the front office an F for it. And I give, them a D for Kemba Walker. Taj Gibson, I felt like that signing was an A+, although he did kind of get in the way of Jericho Sims a little bit. But Taj Gibson, his net rating was +17. He's just, he just did a good job for his team. Especially, it wasn't like they did have him as a starter at some point, but honestly, Jericho Sims did need some time on the bench. I did feel the coach probably should have played him a little more, but I felt like he needed some more time on the bench to actually look at, because Jericho Sims misses assignments a lot, and also he's a huge liability on pick and roll defense. He gets lost in space a lot. Although even on pick and roll defenses or on some pick and roll defense, he's really good. Like basically sprinting out. I saw he would sprint out to the 3-point line to challenge shooter and then get back in the paint to defend, like, people cutting to the paint or trying to attack the basket. And so it's just, there's some ability there with Jericho Sims, but he was so lost a lot that, like, I felt like there wasn't a lot of option, to tell you the truth. You kind of had to play Taj Gibson, and then given Nerlens was always injured. So I give them an A for bringing back Taj Gibson. And then the next person is Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel, I give the front office a C for it. It's just Nerlens Noel was just injured most of the time. And then when he was there, although the team's defensive ratings was really good with Nerlens Noel there, but I kind of felt like, I don't know, I just kind of felt like he struggled really keeping people out of the paint. People were shooting against him. People were shooting a fairly high percentage in the paint against him. It was like they were shooting well over 50%. I think league average for shooting in the paint is like 57%. So you want to keep teams well below 57% at the rim. And I felt like I saw some stat where Nerlens Noel was allowing something like 57, 58% at the rim. So that was, he did struggle this year. He was injured mostly. I give them a C for it. Where the front office did a really good job was in the draft, right? They got Jericho Sims basically, like second to the last pick in the overall draft, and he actually improved a lot as the season went on. He still has a very long way to go. I don't think he can hold a candle to Mitchell Robinson. Honestly, if we lose Mitchell Robinson and everyone and Jericho Sims is the one who's going to replace Mitchell Robinson, I'm actually going to be a little nervous because Jericho Sims is, in my opinion, his team defense, he really struggles on the team defense. He misses the rotations a lot. He tends to get lost a lot. And so I think if it's going to be him that we have next season, I pray to God he watches a lot of tapes in this offseason, especially a lot of tapes of this season to figure out the things he was doing wrong. But I give the team a B for getting that kind of talent because this kid is very athletic, very strong. He actually has stronger games against the beefier centers that Mitchell Robinson struggles against. So that's very interesting to see. So there are some centers he plays better against that Mitchell Robinson plays. And so that's the plus about Jericho Sims. So if we can just get him to learn and get comfortable with the NBA game and become a much better defender and not get lost as much, and then we're going to be great. But it's going to take a lot of work to get there. But for that, I give them a B for that fine. Quentin Grimes, I give them a B because Quentin Grimes, solid defender, perimeter defender. I don't think he's as effective as people think challenging shots. I think he gives up about 44 to 45% shooting against opponents. And so I think, he's good staying with his man, but actually challenging shots. I think if you really look into the numbers, you'll notice Quentin Grimes, he's not as good as an effective defender as people think. Because you got to remember, it's all about being able to stop that man from putting the ball in that hoop. It's great if he can stay with the man, right? But if that man if he's able to stick to him like a cheap suit and the man still pulls up and hits that shot, the man still scored, right? And so, but honestly, his offense is really good. He's a really good shooter. I feel that he can be a really good player. I felt like once they realized the season was getting out of hand, they should have short-circuited basically and try to fast-track his development and just short-circuit all the stuff that they were doing with like Evan Fournier. This kid should have been getting 25 minutes a game, especially as the season went along. He did get injured second half of the season, which was unfortunate, but it would have been great to see him to see them run more plays for him so he can put up a lot more shots. So I give them a B for it because the kid actually is talented. He can put the ball on the floor pretty okay. But we'll see what they do in the offseason. Hopefully he comes back next season healthy. You give him a B for that. Miles McBride, I give him a B because he was able to come in early in the season and actually have some pretty decent games. Although the coach, I felt like, snatched his confidence away during that Toronto Raptors game, and everybody remember that game. It was just unfortunate what the coach did to this kid. After that, it seemed like the kid really struggled with his confidence. Played well in the G League, but when he's in the main team, you can definitely tell he's definitely afraid. He's got the same issues Obi Toppin has with this team now, and the issues that he has with this team now is because he's afraid because the coach doesn't really trust him, and because the coach doesn't trust him, he really struggled down the stretch, especially being aggressive and finding his shots. And so I think that's what happened. Even down the stretch towards the last 2 weeks of the season, the coach probably played in like 15 to 18 minutes a game, which I thought that was still pretty pathetic. The coach should have played him more. But the problem with this kid was the coach snatched his season during that Toronto Raptors game when he basically pulled him after 3 minutes. And I didn't understand that either because the kid played well versus the Warriors, played well versus the Rockets, had some decent games earlier this season. And for some reason, you decide to take this kid's confidence away. And it just really baffles me. But that's the coach we have, and that's my concern with this coach. And that's one of the reasons I don't like the coach is because, we have too many young players on this team, and his job is to infuse confidence in his young players and to bring them up and train them up right, and he's not doing that. You're not here to take their confidence away. You're here to basically develop these young players and make them better basketball players. But we're not here to talk about the coach. Like I said, McBride, I give him a B for that. I give the front office a B for that fine because he was a second-round player. I saw some pretty good games early in the season for him. Although this net rating is minus 14, look, I'm grading on a curve with this kid. And so, you can kill me in the comment section if you like. But I'm going to give him a B because what I saw from him early in the season and then also in the G League, right? And so for this front office, overall, I'm going to have to give the front office a C. And so how I did that was I assigned number to each of these grades. A was a 1, B was a 2. C was a 3, D was a 4, and F was a 5. And so basically I put numbers next to each of these letters, and I got to basically took an average of it. The average of all these grades of average of all the grades was like 2.9 when you assign numbers to it. And the median was 3. Because the average and the median was so close together, 2.9 is basically close to 3, which is a C. 3 is a C. So I gave the front office a C for everything that they did in the offseason. Hey guys, let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what you think about the front office, the decisions they make. Comment below, like, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. I'm going to be putting up another video next week, and so let me know what you think. Talk to you guys soon.